This is a spoiler warning for Deadpool and Wolverine. There are two sides of me that are in conflict and torn about this movie. On one hand, the side of me that loves mindless superhero slop had an absolute blast. This movie is an undeniable good time. It's like Godzilla x Kong, just action figures smashing against each other. But the side of me that's longing for more than just flashy, meaningless spectacle, the side of me that wants more character and substance in my stories, is kinda disappointed. I know. But let's start with the fun parts first. First of all, the appeal of the premise of this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine teaming up. The thought of it alone already sounds like a thrill, and the thing is, Deadpool and Wolverine are pretty great iterations of themselves here. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have wonderful chemistry with each other, and their dynamic is never boring. They're bickering, throwing insults, physically beating the shit out of each other, and they both shine. Wolverine is the straight man to Deadpool's unhinged teenager humor, and they're played perfectly by their actors. I also really like that with this movie being titled Deadpool and Wolverine, that it actually spends most of its screen time with Deadpool and Wolverine together, that they actually spend time building a relationship with each other, and that it feels like a buddy cop journey at times. I was kind of disappointed with Godzilla x Kong only having Godzilla and Kong team up in the third act. The movie's title is Godzilla x Kong. I would have thought that it'd be more than that, especially after the people behind the movie said it would focus on Godzilla and Kong's dynamic. I don't think it really did. I'm happy that this movie actually has Deadpool and Wolverine together for a significant amount of time. The humor of this movie, rounded up, is alright. It's classic MCU humor, except this time we're allowed to swear and break the fourth wall, is all. It felt like for every 10 jokes, 4 would land, but that might just be a matter of preference. You can say that there are a lot of jokes in this movie, so it's natural that some of them wouldn't land, but a lot of them didn't land for me. 30 Rock has a lot of jokes. It has a pretty high joke per minute average, and a few of them fail, but most land. For this movie, it's kind of the other way around. But if this is your humor, you will probably love it. There's lots of it. I just prefer my swearing more in the vein of Veep, not in the vein of Deadpool. As I said, Wade's vibe is very much that of a teenager who just learned how to swear, or a nerd's idea of a cool guy. And hey, that's his appeal. That's what people love him for. So, good on him. He's an orange. I'm not gonna say I wish he was an apple. I'm just not his audience. I still think he's neat, kind of annoying, but his heart is in the right place and he's fun sometimes. Either way, there were jokes that I laughed out loud at, and I was more entertained than annoyed, so. I am baffled though by the action in this movie. Some action scenes are great. The first action scene with Wade fighting TVA guards was so fun. Wolverine and Deadpool fighting each other the first time and in the car was fun, but then some action scenes later on were a lot weaker, like a lot weaker. The choreography not landing properly, the cinematography and the editing making things hard to follow and people hard to see. I could barely make out what was going on when our heroes stormed the giant man lair, and that disappointed me because I really wanted to see those heroes. Speaking of the heroes, I already gave a spoiler warning, so I'm just going to talk freely here now about all the people the movie brings back, or in some cases brings in for the first time. Henry Cavill as a Wolverine variant was such an intensely hype moment. Now that was fun, that was a classic.
But wow, what a moment. I will never forget.
I'm gonna do a quick rundown of the heroes that I loved seeing. I was hyped seeing them all, don't get me wrong, but I'll do this in the order of the ones that I liked to the ones that I loved most. In 6th place, we have Gambit. Channing Tatum was there for the first time ever as Gambit in live action, so I'm happy for him that that finally happened after years. But he never really got a movie, so I don't really have that much of an emotional connection with him. It was really cool though, and no shade to people with accents, but those bits where they were struggling to make out what he was saying, those were very funny. In 5th place, we have Blade. I have nothing but love for Wesley Snipes as Blade. He was part of my childhood. While I didn't really have that much of an emotional connection with a character, my dad loved watching his movies, and so did my neighbor. There was like one summer when I was young that all of my friends' houses that I went to were just playing Blade movies. So while I was growing up, I had this feeling that Wesley Snipes was just there as Blade. This was really nostalgic. In 4th place, we have X-23. Daphne Keane gave one of the best performances by a child actor ever on film in Logan, and she also gave one of the best performances ever in a superhero movie there, so I'm really glad they brought her back. I do wish they gave her more to work with, but I'm glad for anything. In 3rd place, Pyro. They brought back a lot of X-Men characters from the past, which was nice, but out of all of them, seeing Pyro was my favorite. He had a surprisingly abundant screen time, and I was happy for that, because when I was 14, I was obsessed with the CW's Nikita. Not a very great show, but I am gay, so anything with a fighting female lead is dear to me. And yeah, Pyro's actor, Aaron Stanford, was in Nikita, and I really liked him in that, so I was pleased to see him here. In second place, Johnny Storm. Chris Evans being here was great. I think they did the best thing with him, bringing him back as Johnny Storm. The bait and switch where they revealed he was Johnny was probably one of the funniest things in the movie. And the post-credit scene with him just going off, cursing Cassandra Nova is so dear to me and in my heart. I thought it was hilarious. In first place, yeah, we have Elektra. Jennifer Louise, Mary Grace, motherfucking Lisa Garner. Jennifer Garner, I stayed away from spoilers for this movie, so I had no idea Blade or Gambit would be in it. I especially had no idea fucking Elektra would be in it. And yeah, her movie was not great, but I was like, what, 7 years old? It was cinema to me. It was a giant part of my life. In the time before I discovered Resident Evil, I had Elektra. And Jennifer Garner looks so fucking good in this movie. I mean, it's Jennifer Garner, of course she's stunning. But in this movie, I couldn't stop staring at her arms. I thought she looked so built and strong, like she could beat the shit out of me. Those were the highlights of the movie for me, Jennifer Garner's arms and Hugh Jackman's abs, yeah. And as hype as it was to see these heroes, on the other hand, if these heroes got replaced with other random characters, nothing would change. The plot would still be the same. They don't really contribute a lot in terms of character development or story. There would be less hype, and that's that. They're only really here for some, oh look, it's him moment. I mean, they kind of say that it's to send them off properly, and that's kind of touching. And you know, Elektra probably has like, what, 10 fans from her movie? The Blade trilogy is well liked, but it's not as popular in the mainstream as Tobey's Spider-Man. What I'm trying to say is that maybe I should just be happy these heroes got anything at all. I really wish they got more because I love them and they were part of my childhood, but I might be one of the dozens who feel that way. And the movie is Deadpool and Wolverine, so it's nice that we had a tiny Fox superhero movie send-off, but that's not what it's about. It was a highlight though. I also really loved Emma Corrin. In terms of motivation and goals, Cassandra Nova isn't that well written, but in terms of creepiness and her overall personality, loved it. Creepy, weird, icky. I loved seeing them on screen all the time. They made me so happy and so uncomfortable.
Scott used to beg me to wear this suit.
I wish I could say that this movie was visually stunning, but it's not. No, it's standard MCU visuals. There's a scene in the third act right after Deadpool and Wolverine fight the Deadpool variants inside a bus where they jump out and pose for a bit. There's a very clearly CGI Wolverine bobbing on screen looking like a video game character from a character select screen for like 10 seconds. I have no idea how that stayed on the final cut of the film. There are also scenes in a kind of desert wasteland and Deadpool references Mad Max. They really shouldn't have, because now I'm thinking of Mad Max, a far more visually superior movie. Reminding me of Mad Max only makes me think of how drab and boring this looks. The MCU has obviously been struggling with its latest releases. Wade even references that in the movie. Welcome to the MCU. You're joining at a bit of a low point. After the reception of Quantumania, the Marvels, the Disney Plus shows, I was really under the impression that Marvel was sort of course correcting. I thought the fact that they only had one movie this year was a good indication that they were slowing things down to figure shit out. But after seeing this movie, nah, it's more of the same. It's a superhero movie that feels very much like all of the superhero movies you've seen. It's new because it has Deadpool and Wolverine together and Hugh Jackman is back. That feels different. But I had as much fun with this movie as I had with the Marvels. For a while now, it's felt like Marvel has created a genre of its own, with its own type of humor, its own type of look, and its own type of conventions, and I really hoped this movie would make efforts to get out of that, but it doesn't. Artistically speaking, it's nothing new, it's much of the same. It doesn't help that this movie's been touted as something that could save the MCU. Financially, it might, but artistically, yeah, I don't think so. If the MCU takes the success of this movie as a parameter of how they're moving forward with storytelling, then, well, like Deadpool's timeline, they might not have much of a future. They already announced Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, so that's gonna make a lot of money. But is it gonna be good? This movie really felt like it had less of an emotional core than the previous Deadpool films. Yeah, watching Hugh Jackman's abs glistening while Madonna played in the background is probably one of the coolest moments in movies this year. It just doesn't feel as emotionally triumphant as it could have. There's a giant buildup of this traumatic past for Logan, of him making a huge mistake, and it just doesn't get portrayed that well. When he finally reveals it, it doesn't sound that bad, and I think the movie really fumbled that. Deadpool and Vanessa have vaguely broken up. Deadpool's kind of in a low point at the start of the movie, but outside of the first act, this doesn't really get explored that well. Deadpool's relationships with the people that he loves, it's what we're fighting for. It's like the main stake of the movie, but it's barely there. I don't know. Maybe I just want stronger characterizations in stories. Furiosa proved that you can have very interesting characters and still have very fun, explosive set pieces. But then again, Furiosa also sadly flopped at the box office, and this will probably make $1 billion, so Yeah. What about you? What did you think of Deadpool and Wolverine? Please tell me in the comments. And if you like this video, please leave a like, consider subscribing. That's it. I'm out.